So to get started with the first session today, focused on attracting new customers in the recession, I'm delighted to introduce your moderator, Devika Wood, the founder of I Am Arla, who'll be joined by Diane Yanknecht, the founder of Wisenose, Kushal Shah, the founder and CEO of EnvoPap, and Mike Brady, the former CEO of pioneering social business, Grayston. Over to you, Devika.
Hi, thank you so much. Super excited to be here. So we have an insane panel and I'm just going to jump right in with the questions. So first and foremost, to get us started, I want each of you to tell us in one line what your business does. So let's start with you, Kaushal.
Hi everybody, I'm Kaushal. I'm the founder and CEO of EnvoPap. We are a sustainable materials company which uses the waste of agriculture such as sugarcane, wheatgrass and rice straw, and we create materials for the print and packaging industry.
And Diane?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Diane Yanknecht. I'm the founder from Wisenose. And with Wisenose, we're trying to make the internet applicable for students. So we want to give students of all ages access to relevant and reliable and readable information for their learning goals.
Amazing. And Mike?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm the former CEO at Grayston. And I'm now working to expand the models of inclusive hiring to businesses throughout the world, frankly, so that we can give opportunities to everyone that's facing barriers to employment.
Incredible. Awesome. So COVID, let's talk about the biggest challenge that you faced during COVID and how you overcame it. We want one challenge and one strategy for how you overcame that. And we're going to start with you, Diane.
Okay, all right. So yeah, COVID. Well, for every founder, I think when COVID hits you, it's of course quite a situation. And the first thing that most of the founders do is look at your cash flow to see, okay, how many months are there left if really everything stops. So my business is in the education technology sector, which means that at the beginning of COVID, of course, all the school closed and certainly at once 1.5 billion students were learning from home. So that was a bit of a challenging situation for the short term. But then after a few weeks, it turned out that actually COVID did have some opportunities for everybody who was in the education technology sector, especially when you're dealing with digitalizing the learning environment. So in the end, it actually turned out to be a huge opportunity because for us, it took us quite some time to explain what we were doing. And suddenly with all students being at home and parents being involved and teachers dealing with situations where they had to do digital learning, it became clear that the internet could play a big role in a learning environment. So for us, it went from, well, really a deep dive into our cash flow, stopping all the costs that weren't necessary, with one big goal from the start, and that was to keep all my people working constantly. And then it turned into an opportunity. Now, one of the things I did is that for if your business is into SaaS, which is software as a service, the cloud plays a huge role. And so I approached the big cloud players, and especially the one I've chosen for. And that's a huge suggestion I want to give to the audience. The big IT suppliers are really open to helping smaller businesses to go through, to get through COVID. So if you have a relationship with either Microsoft or Google or Amazon, Apple, just approach them and ask them what they can do for you, because they are really there to help you.
Amazing, thank you. So you mentioned there that obviously you had a very incredible opportunity with your business.
Yes.
COVID came as such a dramatic, horrible situation for all businesses, but you saw there was an opportunity for you to capitalize on and actually use your platform to benefit so many millions of students that had access to education at their fingertips. So Kaushal, did you have a similar brainwave moment when you realized that COVID-19 had come in and your business was potentially going to be jeopardized? And did you see it as a challenge and did you overcome it?
Yes, so COVID has taken a toll on every single business across the world. We got actually affected quite earlier because we are in the goods business where we are supplying physical goods to countries across the world. And for us, we got affected in earlier February in terms of supply chain, where all across the world supply chains were dismantled, staffing issues were there. So most of the ports or authorities were not working at all. And there was a huge delay. So this was something which we were expecting, and this was one of the biggest economic risk or potential business risk which we had identified. And that's something which we did it earlier, and that's what actually helped us get over it fairly very quickly, planning on the business risk which we had. And the first thing which we really did was whichever shipment or whichever customer shipments were getting affected, we focused on making sure that the customers are happy. They are getting all the communication right and making sure that we are not losing them as a customers. Because if our foundation is not strong during something which is uncertain, we could have actually fallen down. So we focused on maintaining the customer relationships and not losing any customers, and then sorting out on the supply chain side. And it's a very bad thing when it comes to goods business. It's not digitalized at all. We see everything is getting digitalized on a massive scale. Even education is moving 100% to digital, but the goods business or the physical business, where it comes to documentation, it's still not digital at all. It still moves in physical documents.
That's I can't even imagine how that must. I mean, I've come from a tech background, and I'm sure anyone that understands when they're building a tech platform, in situations like these, technology in the digital realm is what makes us be able to survive such crises, right? So coming into a business where your entire business chain is on the supply chain and everything's been dramatically impacted around the world, it must have been something that was so overwhelming. So you've mentioned that you looked into it and your first point was, let's make sure that we retain our customers and maintain that relationship so we don't lose customers, which is a really interesting point. Mike, I know we were speaking earlier about kind of the lean business model and how you maintain the lean essence without jeopardizing and taking away the heart and soul of the business, which is our employees. What's your concept about this and what's your thoughts around this sort of area?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'll emphasize the comments by Diane and Kaushal around cash flow management and kind of customer management were critical. And we've been working with other manufacturers in this, and I always go to trying to emphasize the North Star, which in my line of work is what are you doing for the employees? So thinking about how you keep them, and Diane mentioned it, how you keep as many team members on board as you're also trying to manage that cash flow. So we've done actually quite a bit of work, and I realize we've got people from all over the world here in the United States. There's training grants available to take the opportunity to think about training, not just for your manufacturing staff, but what are you going to do in marketing? How can you take, when we're so busy, with our regular time, take this moment in time to say, where do we want to go with our strategy and what can we do? And surprisingly, there's often types of grants and opportunities for smaller businesses to use those dollars, and then there's time to work towards that. And then what we also did, and what I've seen other manufacturers doing, is looking up and down the supply chain, trying to be opportunistic about your supply chain challenges and where you can help them, but also being very, very sensitive to not being predatory with either your messaging or your approach to the market.
And on the side of customer marketing strategies, so obviously you have your strategies implemented as a business, you have clarity over what you're trying to achieve. Suddenly something happens and you foresee a recession coming in, and actually it does start to hit. So I think a really important question here for all the budding entrepreneurs that might be watching this, for anyone actually watching this, how can you pivot a customer marketing strategy, especially during a time when there is so much noise everywhere, all over the internet, claiming that obviously people don't have money to spend on products, the way that our entire essence of consumerism and purchasing power kind of comes out of your hands. So as a founder, what strategies would you take or have you taken to maintain a good customer marketing strategy, or even pivot that customer marketing strategy? I know, Kaushal, you mentioned then around customer relationships. Did you do anything around your marketing strategy that you can kind of share with the audience?
Sure. When it comes to pre or during COVID, one thing which we really focused on, we needed to segment our products into two main categories. One is the need and one is the want. As a consumer, do I need these products? And as a consumer, do I want these products, or do I desire these products? So we started segmenting our own products in a way where which were the need of the market right now. So the products which go into grocery packaging, the products which go into food packaging, or the products which go into e-commerce packaging. These are the ones which are in highest demand. And the need products are, the want products are some things which we were desiring and not requiring on an immediate effect, where we would require a lot of push marketing. And for products which are a need, actual need, would require pull marketing. So we started segmenting our products into two main criteria. And then on that, we built up our marketing strategy. For products which were a need, we focused making sure that we are going for a pull strategy, where we are pushing the marketing in such a way that consumers are coming to us, where they're looking for options, because these are the consumers who are continuously looking. Even if the market is good or bad, these are products which are always going to be required. And when it comes to the push style of products which are not really the need of the hour, but they are of course desired, we focused on push strategy, where we were going to the customers, going and talking to them, beginning that relationship, starting making conversations, using engaging content, either via we are holding our own webinars or then pushing up newsletters, and trying different ways to get people connected to us. As right now, the main time is everyone has a lot of time, and we wanted to make sure that in this time we build on that relationship, which we couldn't maybe have done it before COVID, or in the earlier times.
Amazing. And Diane and Mike, I guess really good opportunity to kind of jump in here. I guess there was a very clear strategy here where they had different products, they segmented it, and then they were able to focus on the ones where there was still a clear market need for it, regardless of the noise that was going on. Do both of you have the same situation in the businesses that you are in? I'll go with you, Dan, first.
Yeah, so I think when a crisis hits you, it's time to show the real nature of why you became an entrepreneur, right? And that's because you can cope with situations like this. So what I did, of course, in the beginning, it was challenging, and also dealing with the team, and especially, like you said, Devika, all the negativity around you. Nobody wants to pay anything anymore. But then, yeah, for me, the strategy was to turn that around, because I truly believe that you always have to find opportunities and think in a positive way, even if the world is really suffering. But it's never that it totally closes down, right? It's just to change your tone of voice and to see what you can do. So for certainly, the messaging you're bringing on social media have to be modest, right? I think I saw a few messages during the midst of the crisis that I was thinking like, maybe not the smartest idea to really shout that you are very, very successful with a customer when everybody is suffering. But having that said, I also truly believe that it's good for the business, but also for the motivation of the team to turn it around and to say, okay, right, it's a challenging situation, now we're going to turn it around, and what are we going to do, and how can we make the best of it? And that's by not being too scared. So instead of saying like, okay, maybe those customers are a bit too big, or maybe there's no money, we did the other way around. We did a kind of a bold approach to approach the biggest possible opportunities. For my market, it's, for instance, the ministries of education, and to say, listen, we're all in the same. Are we open for business or not? And it turned out that everybody, of course, is open for business, but maybe in a little bit of a different way, right? You shouldn't be proposing like huge amount, like, okay, if you want to deal with me, then this is the upfront payment. No, think about it, how you can maybe start with a bit of in-kind offering, and then work towards a license agreement. So my suggestion is keep on thinking in opportunities. They will get to you. If you really start thinking in all the challenges, you will have faced lots of challenges as well.
Incredible. So I guess on this call, I've just realized we've got supply chain, consumer face business. We've got a tech platform opening up access to education. And then we've got a service, human service business on Greyston, which is very much empowering people to go and get access to jobs and professional access that we wouldn't normally think they would have access to. Can I get your opinion, Mike, on during a recession, when you have a product that is very human-centered, relying perfectly on the human, how would you go about that in a recession, especially considering what we've been facing now in the light of COVID and the recession that we're going to be going into?
Yeah, and so I mean, I want to just emphasize what's been said. It's excellent. The piece I might just add around the communication aspect and the marketing and the positioning, and in some markets that's appreciated. There are those that are dealing with just an incredible expansion, right? So this recession and what's coming is not hitting everyone the same. Regardless of that, even if you're experiencing a great expansion, there's some level of confidence that you need to build up with your customers that says, hey, I can handle whether your business is going sideways or whether it's going up or whether it's going down. And communicating that with transparency, it's not rocket science, but oftentimes we lose sight. Like, our customers need to understand we'll be there whether things continue to go sideways. This is how we'll get there. If things go through the roof, this is how we'll get there. Making sure you're telling that messaging with authenticity and being transparent, whether it's through social media channels or just direct through some types of newsletters, all of the customers will respond to that. And as the work that I've done over the years, being able to emphasize what the purpose of the business is, and kind of Diane's point that your larger customers may be there to be ready to help. You just need to ask, right? So if you're there to say, hey, I want to make sure my team members can stay employed and can stay working. These are the types of things. Can you pre-order? Can you come up with the solutions for your customers so they're not left trying to figure out how to solve your problems? But there are lots of ways people may want to be creative to support you through this process.
And can we talk a little bit about the moment that you realize that you have to make such significant, potentially financial cuts across businesses during a time like this? You may have a very dwindling bank balance. You may be in the midst of fundraising. You may have just lost some of your biggest clients. Your turnover and your P&L suddenly just looks the complete opposite to what you started out the year with. And at the core essence of your business is your people, your employees, the ones that literally are the engines behind the business. How do you go about that as a founder, as a leader? How do you navigate it? I'm going to start back with you, Mike, and then I'll work along.
Yeah. Well, hey, Diane was saying it, entrepreneurs face challenges every single day, right? We are just gotten hit with a pandemic that's causing just all of these things to happen at once. I often say that when we run social enterprises, we need to focus on the enterprise to ensure we can do the social work down the line. So whatever the cuts are that are needed, you got to be prepared to make them so you survive and can live for another day and can make the kind of impact that you want to. So as founders or entrepreneurs, being honest with how you have to make those and transparent again with your team internally, I think that's the way to go about getting as lean as possible. Don't try to fool your team without saying you're also going to take your own cuts, or that you're also doing whatever you can to find funds to allow you to keep operating, because that can come back to get you. But it's keeping the enterprise going, which at the end of the day is all we all have to do.
Amazing. And Diane, how did you go about that kind of moment of reality, and how did you face that with your team and your employees?
Yeah, so I guess most of the listeners are in the area of profit and purpose, right? And so when the world is on fire, in my opinion, it's a really, really good time to be in this area, because everybody tends to be looking at doing things in a good way. So I would say, even more than ever before, it's right now the time where you really emphasize that you are running a company that is doing both, doing good for the world from a purpose perspective, and also doing good from a profit perspective, or maybe for a short period of time during COVID, a little bit less, but then with a huge opportunity. So I would, whether you're fundraising, whether you're talking to customers, whether you're attracting employees, I would definitely use that, emphasize the purpose of your business right now in these times.
Perfect. And Kaushal?
So just on the 17th of March, we launched our crowdfunding campaign, the same day when the UK announced its lockdown measures and we completely got this, the campaign was a chaos. My team's morale was absolutely bad, because for the 15 days, we hadn't even raised about 20-25% of the campaign, which was about raising 150K. So the first thing I actually did, and it was not something which I planned for, but actually it happened over the case and the circumstances which were around, was focusing on the team morale. Because the team had to be on its highest, because we had a public campaign where consumers were looking at us in much rather depth, asking us questions every single day, and people were making equitable investments. So we had to be up on the best game and best possible public appearance in terms of the team as well. Then at the same time, we focused a little bit on implementing new systems and finding out what we did really lack in the past and what could have been done as a team in terms of improving efficiencies, where we have found we have certain problems. So we focused on that as well, and that put up the team into good responsibility, and that increased their morale and confidence working inside a team and being an ownership of a certain department or any responsibility. And we're also looking at implementing new activities where getting the team involved as well. That has actually helped. We have not been doing that for a long time, but through this Zoom webinars and all that, we've been a good team, where the activities we've carried out have helped us in being confident and running a business as a team together. Like now we are one instead of 5 or 10 different heads.
That's actually a really, really interesting point in some ways, that through all of the horror that's kind of been put onto our plates, and eyes have been open to a new way of working, I think it's actually brought everyone so much closer together, even away from businesses, families, let alone being brought back together. We've got down to the core of what do we actually want to do as people, as humans, what's important to us, how do we want to live our lives. Like consumerism in some ways, which I know is bizarre for the conversations around business, has been completely cut. We don't go and spend on dinners out and clothes here and there. It's like our whole habits have been changed, and hopefully there'll be a consistency in that we start to think, what do we actually need in our lives, rather than what do we just want, and how do we want our teams to be together delivering value and in a close nature. So amazing. I've got a really good question here. So Mike, someone's watched your TED talk. I did too, I'm not gonna lie. on hiring the unemployable. So the question is, for those that obviously haven't watched it, it's around UN Sustainable Development Goals, creating that new normal. So the audience would like to know how each of the other panelists are going to be advancing these UN Sustainability Development Goals. Before we go to Diane and Kaushal, Mike, if you could just touch slightly more on the talk that you did and a little bit about maybe what the audience are asking around here.
I'd be happy to. And yeah, it was an amazing TED Talk. I actually did it with a team member of mine, Dion Drew, and we did it as part of Unilever's TED Institute broad grouping of TED Talks, and it was about hiring the unemployable, which in my experience provides an opportunity to really work with incredibly talented people. But on the flip side, it puts dollars into communities that are often struggling with issues around poverty, issues around creating thriving communities. And just by giving opportunities to team members in a different way, the model of open hiring is someone puts their name on a list, they get a job, no questions asked, no background checks, no reference checks, no interviews. It's based on Buddhist principles around non-judgment and embracing uncertainty, and the belief that everyone has the power to be successful on the job. Again, back to the enterprise part of running a business, we give everyone a chance to succeed. Are they not successful? We help them transition to something else. It's a for-profit business, a benefit corp. We think every business around the globe can embrace this model. That's why we're so excited about the SDGs and the need to think about poverty, to think about equal rights, think about women's rights. You can frame these types of inclusive hiring models in many different ways. And at the end of the day, we see an ROI for the business that comes through all of the expense that goes into filtering people out of the workforce is instead invested in team members to make them successful. So we hit on a number of the SDGs. We think about how global businesses, large and small, can use a model like this, how inclusive hiring can be a way that we really change how society operates.
It's incredible. So, I mean, actually on that, when I had my company, I embedded this into our hiring policy in a roundabout way, that we made sure that any application that came through didn't have any universities on it, and we didn't see the name of the candidate. So it created moved away from the unconscious bias in the hiring space. And actually some of the most incredible people that I hired in my company were those that traditionally, sadly, people would have rejected because they didn't go to the elite universities.
That's right.
They didn't get the grades they needed to, and they were just formidable humans. And I completely stand by it. And anything I'm going to do from now on, I'm gonna stick to it. So, to Diane and Kaushal, how do you implement or kind of support this new way of working? It might not be the exact same around looking at the SDGs, but what do you do, and what are you going to do in your companies going forward?
Yeah, so building a diverse team has been a goal for me from day one, and not because it's just like a popular term. I truly believe that if you have diversity in every aspect, right? It's also ages and where they come from, everything you can think of, not only the male-female part. It really helps your business. And so if I'm looking at my team, I'm not doing the blind interviewing part yet, where I can't see the resumes. I like to see the resumes, but I feel like we really have a very diverse team that is really helping a lot as well. And so, well, my business is really into the high-tech SaaS environment. So working from home has been the standard anyway. Only, well, let's say 30% of my team is in the headquarters. The rest is spread around the world anyway. So dealing with working from home wasn't really my biggest challenge. But I do realize that only working from home is also not the solution. I do miss having the face-to-face conversations every now and then, and really meeting in person as well. So yeah, I'm working on finding that right balance right now. And there was already flexibility, there will be flexibility, and I just have one goal: to build the best team that's possible. And then you have to be flexible, because otherwise the best people won't join your team.
Kaushal, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so for us, we are a certified B Corp, which helps us in making sure that we had all these policies in meeting the highest standards of employability, happiness, or work from home, or breastfeeding. In terms of these policies, we are well ahead of the curve, being a certified B Corp. But one thing which we are really going to focus on is travel, is because we want to make sure that we are reducing our carbon emissions with this new change, because through this pandemic, we've got comfortable working at home, and things can work on. So if required, then only travel to office, something of a strategy which we are working on. That will help us in two ways: making sure that as a team, we are reducing our carbon emissions, but at the same time, only working in offices when required.
Amazing. So I'm going to open up to the audience. I have been asking questions, but officially open it up. So in case anyone wants to come through now, please ask away. I've got one question already here, a great one from Ekanath joining us from Myanmar. So the question is, what are the external factors that are impacting your business, like policy, financial market, or any other need market infrastructures? Does anyone want to go first with that question and answer it, or should I just choose?
Let me jump in, because it's a nice build on our last question. And as I talk to entrepreneurs, I'm always emphasizing, and this is a conversation around customer retention or finding new customers. You got to lead with the story of impact, and then also what you're delivering on. So the where I come from around employment, and you all just talked about diversity, inclusion, keep driving that forward. Keep driving that forward in your conversations. Like put out the SDGs and say, hey, in 5 years, I want to get here. Can you, my customer, help me get this? This is the mechanisms that will allow us to do that. I love that kind of transparency. We had great success with it at Greyston. I push it with all manufacturers. But then the other piece is, now there are tons of dollars available, at least in the United States, about working with a workforce that's diverse and trying to be more inclusive. Maybe you need to change a little of your aspects, and I appreciate that a lot of people on this call may have smaller businesses, but how can you position yourself to go after the dollars that are coming out from the governments and the financial markets to prop up businesses like ours, so that what you're finding all those opportunities, and it may just be a little tweak in the way you represent your business, or the way you represent your hiring, or the way you represent how you source goods. But be creative, because there are, and there needs to be, a lot of money coming from our governments and from the financial markets to prop up businesses just like ours.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I think that taking that accountability and making it sort of a pledge that's open and part of your values and your vision and your mission, integral to your company, employees, customers, is so important. I think that's what we need to start doing more of now that we've seen how the landscape is changing. So Diane and Kaushal, do you want to answer the question? We've got a few minutes left. We've got about 4 minutes left. So if you want to answer this one, we've also got another question coming.
Kaushal, you wanted to say something, right?
Yeah, just one quick one in terms of policy. You know, of course, policy affects a lot of the policies, but across the world, one thing which I've seen is governments are coming up and trying to help businesses. And in the UK, we've seen that the government schemes in terms of helping startups, and these kind of factors can actually, so we had the bounce back scheme, we had the CBILS loans, and we had the JRS, which is the job retention scheme. Such kind of new policy changes are coming up, and this can actually help us gain a long financial runway, at least, unless you're really in a bad financial stage. So looking at the good policies.
Amazing. So we've got one final question, and it is, we've got 3 minutes. It might be one or two questions. Somebody's asked, do we think that does the panel think that the man or woman in the street have heard of the SDGs, and is critical mass vital for their success? And then there's kind of a follow on, that's, now that we know panelists are committing to or committed to the UN SDGs, how do they measure and report as an embedded aspect of their brands? I think, Mike, that's probably a really solid question for you to take. So maybe starting with, how do we create the SDGs that we're saying we're going to be accountable for and pledge? How do we make it so that people understand, so the layman can understand what it is and how it's impacting the SDGs? And then how do we actually embed it and practice by it and show that we're delivering?
Yeah, and that's a tricky question, particularly in the different markets. 700 different countries or something like that that's on this call. I think in the US, they're less known than in Europe, in just my experience. What's critical, however, and important, is that businesses understand what we're trying to work towards and can be in conjunction with the governments towards these. The transparency around building around the goals is for your internal team to actually say, hey, I'm really into 11. I'm really into this. We can actually achieve this if we do these 10 things. How much you communicate to your consumer base about them in that way, you need to understand if your customers and your consumers know them, because I do appreciate that the man and woman on the street may not have a clue what the SDGs are right now. Getting them more aware of them is important, but we also have our B Corp standards that we're continuing to push knowledge around and what it means to be a B Corp. So all these things come together, I think, in a critical mass around meaningful business. Like, we just have to make people understand they got to spend money towards our types of businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I can reply on that, of course, the man on the street have not heard of SDGs, and the term sustainable development goals might be quite complicated, but it's our task to explain what it is, because if you start to talk about inclusion, if you start to talk about education, everybody knows what education is. You just shouldn't use those terms. And Mike, I don't think that Europe knows those terms very well, or is more ahead of that in the US. I think it's just up to us to explain them in a very easy way and not use those very complicated terms. But if you explain what it is, then everybody is supporting it, I assume.
Amazing. And Kaushal, anything to round off before I bring this to the end?
I completely agree with Diane. Same thing. I was just going to say the same thing. We need to push it up in a very practical way, how an average man can understand. So in easy way, we, as NVOPAP, we are a big supporter of goal number 12, responsible production and consumption. The easiest way we tell our clients is we support this goal by not using wood fibers or fuel-based fibers. We use the waste of agriculture, wherein we are responsibly sourcing our product and raw material and making sure that we are delivering on the SDG.
Amazing.
And that's how we are educating the practical customer.
Incredible. So it's been amazing. I think I need to round it off now. I don't know if we have to leave, but thank you everyone for an incredible panel. So inspired by all of you. I've written down notes to go and embed in my own life. So yeah, thank you everyone. And thanks Tom for putting this on for us.